In this episode of Art Loft, German painter Thomas Bayrle.
Miami, it is a long, weaving city, woven from thousands of houses and motorways and everything flat, the flatness. It's a woven society.
Juxtaposing ancient and modern design in one architectural gem.
You probably know I love circles, but this particular proportion, it didn't suit either one circle or two circles. So it was very practical to come down in lines, using gravity and making it linear.
And Rebecca DiDomenico, an artist of all mediums.
I'm not the kind of artist who, like a portrait painter or somebody who, picks something. They're a ceramic artist and that's what they're going to do. They're going to be making ceramics for their whole life. That's not who I am as an artist.
It's all ahead in this episode of Art Loft.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art.
Hi, I'm Jumane N'Namdi, and from the studios at South Florida PBS, this is Art Loft. Welcome back. In this episode of Art Loft, a modern master takes on a new art form. But first, the Institute of Contemporary Art Miami, also known as the ICA Miami, is an international art museum with deep local roots and character. ICA Miami is also sharing several behind-the-scenes documentaries with Art Loft viewers highlighting influential artists from around the globe as they engage with South Florida's newest art museum. Their first film, European artist Thomas Bayrle, whose 50-year career is celebrated by an ICA Museum solo exhibition of more than 75 works. His first museum show in the U.S. The film takes place from Bayrle's studio in Germany to the Miami production of his largest sculpture ever, an iconic steel superstructure weaving itself into ICA Miami's 4-story atrium gallery. Now this is a must-see.
One man or one woman is a totality in itself. It's composed out of billions of cells. Each cell is single. This is so fantastic. It goes down to the atoms, which are even single. I think the only thing which is really God is that nothing repeats. It all looks like the same, but it isn't. Nothing is the same. It just looks like. This is my belief. Just let them exist here. So that's it. When we bought it, nobody wanted it. They wanted to make a parking lot of it. Bring these trees down and make a parking lot for trucks. Yeah. We have it 45 years now. And here I made very many works. You have many layers. Your situation depends on how you get your layers fixed and make them positive. Positive, yeah. And as every second it changes. You have to work all day long, and even in their dreams. This is actually comes from this plant. It's like a plant, and at the same time it's motorway. I push a lot of plaster on it to make it dirty. It's really storage here. Yeah, here is, if you see Madonna, it doesn't come so much from religion, it comes more from the abstract power this figure has, mother and child. This is why I'm so interested in the Madonnas, and then I filled them. I really used them as containers. No, this is Jesus. There's a Madonna. This has numbers that I could pre-produce all these elements. Each area had to be produced by printed latex with the image and then distorted by 3-4 people pulling on the photocopy machine or in front of a camera, and then I cut them out and filled them in the big image. Even in the eye of Christ, everywhere is this Mercedes. This is now the reality of now. When I entered the place, I immediately thought something should happen there. Could be a primitive form of cathedral, kind of a church. I should put some sort of Madonna in there. For me, the new thing is that it is a 3D version, which I never had. And this is the work of Jonathan.
The building kind of puts a number of constraints in front of you. There's an existing wood structure that's part of the historic Moore building. Here we are talking about a sculpture that's nearly 4 stories tall. So there's already a few things. How do we get something bigger than the building inside the building? So we had to be able to translate both the intention and the kind of vision of the artist, but to something that was achievable architecturally and in the building and in a structural way. There's 576 pieces in the structure. But what each of those pieces has in common is that they all only move in 2 axes. Each of those pieces will actually lay perfectly flat on the ground. You take these 2-dimensional forms or these 2-dimensional puzzle pieces, and all of a sudden you have a hand or a face.
The development of the making is totally changing, but still the spirit is in it. Miami, it is a long, long weaving city, woven from thousands of houses and motorways and everything flat, the flatness. It's a woven society. Then I see American flatness as a very, very electric thing.
It's just the thing is that it goes like, it's supposed to go like this.
I see maybe a construction of an organic Madonna in this kind of grid, and this might be even a little spooky or a little strange if it is material or if it is not materialistic. I think it is a very new work for me, and it was provided by the people from the museum. I never have done something like that. Yeah, this is America. It's absolutely fantastic.
I was nervous to see what you would think.
Alex, he was really a motor in it, you know. It was really a fresh way of picking. And I think that it is very subjective, very fresh, and very colorful. It shows brushstroke works, it shows Madonna works, it shows collages. Actually, he took me as I am, as a multifunctional artist. It's really a great gift to me.
Coming up on Art Loft.
It's made with these scales that are mica, and then they have sandwiched in between them either butterfly wings or bits of trash.
It's been 10 years since the Gleaming Hearst Tower opened in New York City, and the colossal canvas inside the lobby reveals how architect Lord Norman Foster and artist Richard Long blended materials and styles to achieve a magnificent work environment. Now this is a mud sea. Get it? Mud sea. Okay, well, you'll get it after you watch this. WNET has the story.
I get calls and somebody says, you've got to see the building from here, or you've got to see the building from there. It's different. It's like any of the buildings. This one is, it's a one-off. It's unique. But I think there's another very interesting relationship between what Richard has done and what we've been doing as architects. If you like, the relationship between the architecture of the new, that diagrid, the offset of the escalators as you come up, and the manner in which Richard echoes the geometry of this space here, I think is very interesting.
In a curious way, you know, given my love of water and stones and mud and raw materials, and also the fact that, like, the first human habitation, the first natural place for people to live in was caves. Norman has chosen a Neolithic artist to make his drawing. I happen to have been born on the second most tidal river in the world. So as a child, I was always fascinated by the tide going in and out, you know, dropping and rising 30 feet every day with these enormous, colossal mud banks. This work here is just another continuation of my love of rivers and the way that I can use rivers and the materials of the rivers in all these different ways. I never consider these works as paintings. You know, I call them mud works because for me a painting is something made with a brush. And the first mud works I ever made were with my hand exactly like this, but on the floor. So I always thought of them as like two-dimensional sculptures on the floor. And it was only years later that I had the idea that, you know, I could do the same thing on a wall. I actually work very fast. I think if people pay enough attention to it, the way it looks is revealed in the way, you know, it's made, or the other way around. I had to start with the proportion of the wall. You probably know I love circles, but this particular proportion, it didn't suit either one circle or two circles. So it was very practical to come down in lines, you know, using gravity and making it linear. Each line is a sort of the span of my body. If the lines were too wide, then the mud starts drying on me. So the mud always has to be wet as I'm working down. It's got, you know, it's got the cosmic energy of all the splashes, and every square centimetre of it is completely different from another bit. Maybe I hope people will think about that art is still made by hand. It's still a very humanistic activity. I thought it was a nice, strong and maybe lyrical idea to bring mud from where I live in England and to mix it with the mud from the river, you know, where this location is. I brought my River Avon mud because it has its amazing sort of viscosity and strength. The Hudson mud actually was a little bit siltier than the Avon mud, a little bit more granular. So this work in particular is like a combination of where I come from and where this place is. Probably 80% of this image was made by water because a small amount of mud goes a long way. So every time I was mixing up some handfuls of mud, it was like mixed with like buckets of water. In a way, it's I'm showing you here like the nature of the wateriness. You know how water falls down. One of the basic characteristics of my work is making marks in different ways. You know, like invisible footprints, visible footprints, fingerprints, handprints with mud. All those elements are based on my body. So this particular work is a certain type of mark making in my repertoire. There's this politically correct idea that you walk in the landscape and leave no trace, except only footprints, and take out only photographs. Or you make colossal great monuments like American land artists, for example, you know, using bulldozers and excavators. So my work inhabits what I consider a very interesting territory between those two ideological positions. You know, there's a whole range of activities which use the time, space, materials of the world, you know, without necessarily having to make monuments. But nevertheless are about strong ideas which resonate and last forever.
You can have hopes, and in a way you can set the stage. And the way that this has come together is in the hope that this will be a community space, that it will reinforce the culture of a company, which is really a family. And so the hope is that, in a way, the architecture will further the values and the sense of community of the company.
That's fabulous. Fabulous building.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norman.
Next week on Art Loft.
Every time we run the Future Pages project, there are students who just take massive leaps.
When I first came in, I was really shy. I didn't really speak a lot. It's just like an amazing opportunity to show my voice for the first time.
Rebecca DiDomenico is an artist beyond mediums. This Boulder, Colorado-based creator has dabbled in art forms from sculpture to prints and even a cave walk installation piece. Rebecca is so amazing, she can even turn trash into treasure. Rocky Mountain PBS introduces us to this jack of all trades. You're going to love this profile.
I'm Rebecca DiDomenico, and I'm sitting inside of one of my installations. It is a cave made of mica and butterfly wings and trash. It's a walk-in cave. It's called pellucid, which means beyond light, or kind of, sometimes people use it to describe the sky. So like a very clear sky is called a pellucid sky. But it also has a little bit of a kind of a spiritual notion to it, sort of like when you see something that is really moving and you feel like it's even more lit up than normal. It's made with these scales that are mica, and then they have sandwiched in between them either butterfly wings or bits of trash, all different colors. And there are 60,000 pieces, and they're sewn all on a sewing machine, all in rows. Some of the concepts that I was dealing with was the idea of fields of color. And so one of my first idea was to make it all with the mica and the butterfly wings. And the mica kind of acted as this protective agent to, you know how like when you try to save a butterfly wing and it turns to dust? And so the mica was a way to sort of protect the butterfly wing so it doesn't turn to dust. But then I realized, oh, I need something else besides the butterfly wings, not to make the whole cave out of just mica and butterfly wings. The same way that the butterfly wings are very ephemeral and they don't last and everyone thinks butterfly wings are beautiful, I thought I'm gonna have something the opposite of that. So I used trash. Mostly it's plastic trash. So it's kind of like this material that we're stuck with now. It's ubiquitous. You can't ever get rid of it. Most people try to get rid of it. Most people think it's ugly. And yet it comes in all these really bright colors. These, you can really tell the difference between the trash, the plastic, and the butterfly wings in certain areas where they meet. And the colors, you know. One of the things that happened when I was making it is I realized there are no more pink butterflies in the world. So if I wanted that color, which I wanted the whole cave to encompass all the colors, then the pink would have to be the trash. The morpho butterflies are the blue ones. Well, all the stalactites and the stalagmites, one of the things that I was going to talk about was how I used molds from cypress knees. So this is a cypress knee, and if you don't know what that is, it's a root of a tree that grows in the swamps in the south. I covered them with plaster bandages, and then when they dried, I cut the plaster bandage off and then reformed them again. And then I put mica dust and flakes of mica dust and other mineral dust that I put in a blender. So I had this blender, and I would put these kind of flakes of mica in there and grind them all up. I'm not the kind of artist who, like a portrait painter or somebody who, picks something. They're a ceramic artist and that's what they're going to do. They're going to be making ceramics for their whole life. That's not who I am as an artist. I have love affairs with materials. I was asked to do this show on maps, and I had made some other work with maps before, but never anything on this scale. And I just started thinking about, the fact that they're flat, that it's like a flat depiction of something, the land and the way the land moves. I'm making all these pieces out of places that exist already. And I thought, what about places that exist in your imagination? So then I started inventing my own maps. I think there is something to be said for living artfully or making your life an art form. And what effect does that have on you and your inner life and your actual life, the life that you choose to lead? I think that's an art form.
Thank you for joining us on Art Loft. Connect with us on social media at Art Loft SFL and watch us anytime on the PBS app by selecting WPBT2 as your local station. For Art Loft, I'm Jumane N'Namdi. Now, remember, art imitates life, so live a beautiful life. Peace.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art.